the correlation between the situation that happened in Vegas with Orlando Anderson and the situation that happened in New York with Ayana Jackson. Tupac understood that it was one thing to be popular, but it was another thing to be accepted. Let's get into some of this straight game.
Life is like some cards. It's not what you dealt, but how you play it. Play each situation correctly. I remember they used to laugh at a brother.
Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. It's your boy DELRAY, Richardson, platinum artist, platinum songwriter, Straight Game TV. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate your time. Do me a favor. Click on the thumbs up button. Also, subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And like I always say, if you want to be one of the first people notified when I drop some of the straight game, please do me a favor and click on what appears to be that little bell notification right below this video. I'm going to get right into it. Ladies and gentlemen, upon doing my research, there was a common thread and a common theory, or should I say fact, when you understand what I'm about to show you, involving Tupac Shakur. There was a situation in Northern California where Tupac was involved with a situation dealing with some people who were causing ruckus, and a little kid was shot, right? Really didn't have anything to do with Tupac himself. He didn't do it, but just being around the people and him being the one who had the most money at the time, who was the popular figure at the time, and who people always wanted to try to get at and start trouble with, from the perspective that, you know, about what he was rapping about, and always trying to have to prove that, yo, he was, you know, what he was rapping about. He was from that environment. He was, you know, a gangster, if you will, right? Then there came the situation in Las Vegas. And when you deal with that and you break that down, you say, well, you know, I always ask myself, you know, what was Tupac doing? Like, you know, you were the breadwinner in that situation. You know, you were the top prize, you were the top G, you were the A side of all of that game. And so what would make him want to go and, you know, if somebody, you know, whispered in his ear something about something, and what would make him want to go and attack Orlando Anderson, somebody who really hadn't done anything to him per se, as far as we know, at that particular time. And I can only surmise it to Tupac wanted to be accepted by the people that he was around. And I'm going to give you something that he said in regards to that. I don't know if Tupac was fearful. I don't know if he felt, you know, threatened. I don't know that. You know what I mean? But in that situation right there, that's the only thing I knew at that time for where Tupac was in his career, as far as his popularity. I couldn't understand the mindset that, you know, him being, you know, the top artist, number one selling artist at that particular time, you know, understanding all of his situation. Was it a moment's thing where he just felt like he, you know, wanted to react, or it looked to me like he had something to prove. You know what I mean? That he was with the program. You know what I mean? From that perspective. And so I take you to New York and I take you to this statement right here. This is very important right here. I want to show you something in relation to the situation dealing with Ayana Jackson after Tupac had time to reflect. We know that he didn't have time to reflect, you know, after the Vegas situation, because he was shot and subsequently died some days later after September 7th and being shot, right? But once again, this is the Tupac that was incarcerated and had the time to sit back and think about what he did and what he didn't do, what he was guilty of and what he wasn't guilty of. And this is very important. This is his statement. admit, not mine. And I just took this as like, wow, it takes a lot for somebody to sit down and admit where they were at that particular time. Check it out. And Tupac basically saying, with the opportunity to reflect sober on the events that led to his incarceration, he said he realized that even though I'm innocent of the charge they gave me, I'm not innocent in terms of the way I was acting. I'm just as guilty for not doing nothing as I am for doing things. He accepted blame for not having intervened on behalf of Ayana Jackson. I know I feel ashamed because I wanted to be accepted and because I didn't want no harm done to me. I didn't say anything. Wow. That's powerful. That's powerful because on one hand, Tupac understood the legal situation and and saying, he had done nothing wrong to her from that perspective, but in not because he said he had went to sleep and not doing anything, basically saying, I'm just as guilty for not doing nothing as I am for doing things. And he accepted the blame for not having intervened on behalf of Ayana Jackson. I know I feel ashamed because I wanted to be accepted. And because I didn't want no harm done to me, I didn't say anything. And so that tells me, as much as Tupac wanted to be accepted in that situation, he was afraid of something happening to him. Or somebody, might say, yeah, well, you ain't with the, you're not what, what you doing, or whatever it was that he was thinking at that time. But he expressed that he didn't want any harm come to him. And I can only go back to Las Vegas. And, because when you think about it, Tupac being in jail and being sober and being able to reflect, it's a different vibe. There's no pressure. There's no, I gotta, you gotta hold up this image. You gotta try to be this guy. You're now incarcerated. You ain't going nowhere. Ain't no clubs. Ain't no chicks and nothing like that. It's time for you to sit down and think about, which most people don't do, and reflect about what you did wrong, what you need to do right, and make an amends with yourself. More importantly, like I said, you understand that Tupac understood that that he didn't do anything wrong as far as being what he was charged for. But like he said, he didn't do everything right, and he should have, acted different in that situation. It takes a real man to understand that, accept that, and admit that. I think that's another reason why Tupac is so highly respected from that perspective. Let's be clear, and I want to be very clear as Tupac's words, not nothing I'm trying to convey to you. Tupac said, when he said, even though I'm innocent of the charge they gave me, right? So innocent, he didn't do anything. I'm not innocent in terms of the way that I was acting. And like I said, once again, it takes a big man to admit to that. But the question is, when will Ayana Jackson come out and admit that Tupac never really did anything to her? I asked that question also because just as much as it takes a man to be a man, it takes a woman to be a woman. And like I said, from that perspective. So when you think about it, Tupac just wanted to be accepted. And then the fear factor, right? When you go back to Vegas, when something was said to him, was he afraid that if he didn't do nothing, as much as whatever conversation that they had and, did Tupac feel like, they're going to feel like, yo, he wasn't with the program or whatever if he didn't do anything. You know what I mean? That's the only thing that I could see, because in any other boss player situation, as far as when I say boss player, meaning one controlling their business and all of that, but on another level of thinking, when you're dealing with, street stuff, you know what I mean? It's a little bit different. And it's like, what compelled him to want to go and do something to Orlando Anderson, Was it that same feeling? I'm just, thinking about, was it that same feeling that he just didn't want nothing to happen to him? You know what I mean? Understanding that. And then even in New York, when you go back, something did happen to him, even after that situation had happened and he didn't say anything, because he said he was afraid. Something did happen. He ended up getting shot at Quad. So, the conflicting thoughts and I would say the PTSD running through his mind, body, after going through what he had gone through. You know what I mean? It had to be a hell of a thing, from that perspective. So, yeah, I just wanted to shed some light on this. I think it was very important. And I think it's very important to understand, like, what he was thinking about and what he thought about certain situations and being able to reflect on that as a man. Everybody can't do that. Everybody can't do that. People still living in their bravado, whatever you want to call it. You know what I mean? I think him taking that time to reflect and say, hey, you know what? Man, I wasn't being totally 100% who I was supposed to be at that particular time based on these various feelings and emotions, and what I find most poignant is the fact that I didn't want no harm done to me. I didn't know he really felt that way. You know what I mean? Until I came across this. So like I said, I just wanted to share this. Like I said, chime in the comments and tell me what you guys think about this, because I think it's very important and something that we all can learn from as men and women. You know what I mean? Like I said, especially living in the society that we live in today, people running around just saying any old thing, and and trying to wanting to be famous, and going outside of themselves, trying to prove something based on whatever pressure, societal pressure, peer pressure, or whatever they feel, from that perspective. So yeah, I just wanted to share this. Chime in, tell me what you guys think. This is one of those introspective things that you could think about. Your boy DELRAY, straight gang.